My brothers and sisters, today's message is not just about Burkina Faso, it is about Nigeria. Good afternoon or evening to everyone gathered here. Today, we explore a compelling message delivered years ago by T.B. Joshua, a message of warning, of hope, and of urgent invitation. It concerns his prophetic vision for Nigeria, a revolution born of protest, and the call to avert it by genuine transformation. Let us step back to a moment of revelation. Around July 2013, T.B. Joshua stood before his congregation at Synagogue, Church of All Nations, Lagos, and declared a vision that would capture widespread attention years later. He said, "I am seeing a revolution. When I say revolution, I mean every revolution starts by protests. At the beginning of that protest, the power that be has the ability to stop them. But when it becomes revolution, no one can stop revolution." He also added, "You can stop protests, but you cannot stop a revolution. It will become so big that it cannot be stopped. This I see happen. Nigeria, pray." In his message titled "Carry Your Youth Along," he not only issued a warning, he proffered a solution. God has given us the way out: job creation for the youth and the creation of a new social value system. In politics, the youth should be considered for important positions by doing this. We are training them to take over tomorrow. Today we will unpack three key segments: the nature of the prophecy, its vision, its warning, its underlying diagnosis, what T.B. Joshua identified as the root causes, and the proposed remedy, what he said ought to be done to avert the worst. We will then reflect on the implications for Nigeria, for the youth, for government, for society, and we will close with a call to action. T.B. Joshua did not couch his message in comfortable platitudes. He declared, "I am seeing a revolution. People will take to the streets at the beginning of that protest. It might be stopped. Eventually, it will become so big that it cannot be stopped." He emphasized that what may appear as a mere protest can evolve into something far larger, a revolution in which everybody is ready to die. Why is this important? Because protest is often episodic, one event, one grievance. Revolution is systemic, a tipping point when frustration, injustice, exclusion combine and explode. T.B. Joshua saw that in Nigeria. A tipping point was being approached. He said, "Revolution is a weapon of change that is coming." He further warned, "When people will take to the street because life has no value anymore to the people." Here is the gravity of the vision: when despair and injustice become so pervasive that the people believe they have nothing more to lose, the eruption becomes not just about a demand, but about the system itself. He concluded the warning with, "I have said it, none of this will go without being fulfilled." Thus, the prophecy stands as both warning and declaration. What did T.B. Joshua identify as causes of the impending revolution? There are three major themes: youth exclusion and frustration. He observed that despite education and exposure, many young Nigerians feel they have no place in politics, no job to keep them busy. He noted that 90% of the youth have come to believe that it was by becoming political thugs that they could be successful, especially because those in the political offices do not want to retire and become statesmen. In other words, when the legitimate pathways to participation are closed, illegitimate pathways open. He said, "Revolution is coming when people will take to the street because life has no value anymore to the people. When citizens believe that their lives, their dignity, their prospects have no value, that is a combustible mix." He called for a new social value system and pointed out that the old orientation, where youth are sidelined, where leadership is closed, where corruption or stagnation prevails, is no longer tenable. He warned of coming ominous signs and that leadership must act now. Thus his diagnosis: a combination of excluded youth, devalued lives, failing systems, and leadership unresponsive to deeper change forms the fertile ground for revolution. Importantly, T.B. Joshua did not merely warn, he offered a way out. He urged that the way given by God was visible and actionable. Let's explore his remedy in two dimensions. He stressed, in politics, the youth should be considered for important positions such as assistants to elders. While the elders are ministers, the youth should be junior ministers. He argued, By doing this, we are training them to take over tomorrow. This is because they are leaders of tomorrow. This is not simply a tokenistic gesture, but a structural reorientation of governance. Youth as active participants, not just bystanders. Central to his solution is job creation. God has given us the way out. Job creation for the youth and the creation of a new social value system. He emphasized that no matter how educated the youth are, if they feel they have no place in politics and there is no job to keep them busy, the risk remains. He called for a new orientation, a renewal of social values where youth feel represented, valued and responsible. A recurring phrase is carry your youth along. He asserted when we carry the youth along, they will be available to readily speak to their colleagues. In effect, engage the youth now. Provide them access, representation, voice so that when legitimate pathways exist, desperation and rage diminish. Thus the remedy is clear structural inclusion, economic opportunity and value renewal. What does this prophecy and its associated diagnosis and remedy mean for Nigeria, the most populous African nation, with an enormous youth bulge and long-standing governance challenges? Several reflections arise. To the youth of Nigeria, this prophecy underscores your centrality. You are not just future leaders, you are present actors. Joshua warned that youth who feel excluded become destabilizing forces, but youth who are engaged become change agents. The call is to seek representation, not just in protests, but in policymaking, in local governance, in meaningful platforms. Leaders are pressed to listen, to include, to recognize that exclusion of youth is a ticking time bomb, to ensure job creation, meaningful participation, and credible value systems. If leadership fails, the prophet warned, life has no value. People will take to the streets. That is a clarion call. Protests alone are not sufficient. While protests signal discontent, they must be followed by structural change. The message here is that systemic reform, inclusion, jobs, governance renewal is required before the tipping point becomes irreversible. There is a theological dimension. The prophetic voice calls for moral courage. Joshua insisted, read about me and my track record. This is the voice of God, whether one agrees with him or not. The core challenge remains, are faith communities only responding to crisis, or proactively shaping society so that revolution becomes unnecessary? The prophecy was given in 2013. By 2020, the nationwide NDSARS protests in Nigeria were widely seen as resonating with Joshua's prediction. This suggests that prophetic voices may not always align with immediate timelines, but their underlying warnings can surface years later. Whether one interprets this as direct fulfillment, partial fulfillment, or cautionary remains open, but the relevance remains undiminished. Let's move from reflection to action. Here are steps engaged citizens, youth, leaders, and churches can take. Youth engagement: seek representation of local councils, party structures, NGOs. Insist on mentorship and ladder structures, junior posts leading to senior posts. Job creation advocacy. Press governments and private sector to invest in youth skill development. Apprenticeships, startups. Value renewal. Promote social value systems where dignity is upheld. Corruption resisted. Life is valued. Dialogue between generations. Encourage elders and youth to work together, elders mentoring, youth innovating, and faith-led social awareness. And churches and religious organizations should preach more than spiritual comfort. They should speak to social justice, inclusion and governance. Early warning systems. As Joshua warned, protest may be stopped, revolution cannot. Therefore, monitor signs of mass frustration, unemployment, disenfranchisement, devalued life. Act before tipping point. Ownership of change. Rather than only protest, lead in building. Youth-led initiatives in education, community development, politics. Make your voice part of the solution. In closing, the prophecy of T.B. Joshua speaks to a nation, Nigeria, at a crossroads. He urged Nigeria, pray. He warned of revolution when protests are ignored. He called for inclusion, jobs, new values. The choice remains: do we wait for the explosion or do we build the bridge? Do we treat protest as the end, or as the sign that transformation is overdue? Let us choose transformation. Let us carry our youth along. Let us invest in job creation. Let us renew our values. Because when people feel valued, when they see a place for themselves, the fearful vision of unstoppable revolution need never become inevitable. Thank you for listening. May this message not just be heard, but acted upon so that Nigeria turns from threat of turmoil to promise of renewal. If this story inspired you by African lights, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us share more stories of transformation, courage, and hope from across the African continent. Together, we will keep the flame of African burning bright.